This is a special Thanksgiving edition of Breaking the Line, the ECNL podcast, featuring ECNL President and CEO Christian Lavers and ECNL Vice President and Chief of Staff Doug Bracken. Like so many of you, I am thankful to be working with the ECNL, and on the special holiday show, Christian and Doug talk about playing formats. What does that mean? Well, at different age groups, there are different formats, including working up from 3v3 to 5v5 and 7v7 at younger ages to 9v9 and 11v11 at older ages. They even talk about how in England they do some 2v2 teams at the really young ages. Pretty interesting topic, and with that, I turn it over to Mr. Lavers, wishing him and all of you a very happy Thanksgiving. Take it away, Christian.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dean. Doug, good to see you. You have a foreign environment around you.
I have a new background. Yeah, no scarves. I am actually in Florida. We decided kind of last minute, we found out that our kids are off school over the entire Thanksgiving week. So we threw a curveball and came down to Florida and got here today. So, but would never ever miss the podcast for such things. So
I like that.
Here I am. You live in San Diego, so you don't have to go to places like Florida.
Are you in North Florida or South Florida?
We are in Palm Coast, which is about an hour, I think, south of Jacksonville.
All right.
It's like 85 right now.
Oh, that's warm.
There's a pool out there somewhere that I'm not at currently, right. But
you'll be there soon. 85 is significantly warmer than I'm enjoying right now.
Yeah, it was chilly back at the home front. So just look forward, like anybody, try to spend time with family, especially during this time. So should be a good time.
Well, let's get some spicy topics for the Thanksgiving week podcast.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk about playing formats, and people say, well, what does that mean? And what we mean is, at different age groups, there are different formats, meaning different numbers of players on the field, start at 5v5, work our way up to eventually playing 11v11. And we're just going to talk about what the pros and cons of when those things need to happen, and kind of just try to get some conversation around that. And I know you've done a lot of work and thought about this, and I think it's really in your wheelhouse of now, right? Because you've gotten to Zone 1 and coached there now, which you hadn't done previously. So it should be an interesting conversation, one that some may agree with, some not.
Some hot opinions, man. Some hot takes on this issue.
I don't think we're gonna. I think our opinions will probably be similar, I would think.
Yeah, but I think we'll unpack some things because there is a lot of push. I mean, after you go back when we were youth players and in the dinosaur ages of soccer in this country, to be fair, we were probably playing 11 aside when we were under 10s on big fields.
I do not remember ever in an organized way playing anything less than 11v11.
Yeah. And so if you think about it, we go from really naive structure in this country where the game was just sort of applied to younger kids, regardless of constraint and format and size and all that thing, to the recognition that smaller sided games are positive and helpful in development and player experience. And those are two different things. To the Federation, maybe 8-9 years ago, maybe a little earlier than that, putting in some recommendations or mandates maybe for small-sided games of certain numbers, to now seems to be a lot of people in places, or maybe I shouldn't say a lot, there are some noisy places that are trying to go back to bigger numbers in the US anyway, at some of these age groups. And to be clear, what we're talking about is at U12 and down and what the playing format is. And there is a lot of change happening in this topic, even internationally, relatively recently. So I guess to set the stage, right now, according to U.S. Soccer's player development perspective as of 6-7 years ago, At U11 and U12, the game format here is 9v9, 8 field players and a goalkeeper. At U10 and U9, it is 7v7. Okay.
Correct.
And at U6 and down, sorry, U8 and down, it is 5v5.
Correct.
And that's all pretty good. To be clear, that is not a universal standard. There's a lot of different ways it's done around the world. What I would say from my understanding and the research we've done and the conversations we've had with people, and this may be a topic that we can bring some people on here in the future. There are very few places that are playing 11 aside in these age groups at all. And if you had to say anything, I would say that there are multiple high performing countries in terms of development of young players that are playing actually smaller than what the United States recommendations are of 9v9, 7v7, and then 5v5. So we'll start there, which
How
seems,
much? Well, let me ask you a question. I don't want to get too far ahead of us, but I'm going to ask this question. How much does playing format play into player development?
I think it is a huge impact. And there's two reasons for that, as we hinted before. One is a development perspective in terms of touches and involvement in what you would call game actions. Obviously, the fewer the people on the field, the more frequently each player will be involved with the ball. The smaller the field to a point, the more frequently the player will be on or near the ball. So that means there is more opportunity for the player to make decisions and to manipulate the ball with dribbling, shooting, passing, whatever it may be. But then there's also the player experience perspective, which I think is, correlated with development to some degree, but it's a lot more fun for kids to be around the ball. It's not
Yeah,
fun to be on a field where you never touch the ball because it's 50 yards away and there's 16 other people that get in the way when you try and actually play with, as I used to say in the Y license back in the day, there's one toy on the field, right?
right.
So I think playing structure has a huge impact on the enjoyment of the player in terms of their participation, and then also from a developmental perspective in terms of the number of times they actually get to do something. And that's something also we should not exclude defending from that. So tackling and getting the ball is an action as well. So I think it's significant. I assume you agree with that.
Yeah, I do. I do think it's significant. Obviously, all the things you said, and just think the enjoyment of the game is so important at the young ages. Because anytime you enjoy something or really enjoy something, you're going to put more into it, do it more. And I think that's something we can touch on later too, is just how much players should play, not in a specific game, but just, overall. And, but I think you're right. I think when players enjoy something, love something, or get a passion for something, they're gonna spend more time on it, which can't do anything but help.
Yeah.
So
So if all of that seems pretty intuitive, right?
yeah,
Small field, small numbers, more involvement. What's the argument, right? And there is an argument, probably not as much at the U7, 8, 9, but as you get into U10, U11, there are people who want the game to be bigger and played 9v9 early or 11v11 early, who make arguments like it's preparation for the 11-a-side game, which I think is a fundamentally flawed statement
yeah,
when people
yeah.
say that.
You
And
see
we
that a
can,
lot. You see that a lot right now. You see
yeah,
that
and
a lot. What that half season, half a year, right before the transition to a different playing format. People want to start playing that
well,
format.
and
And
yeah, I'll explain why I think that is a fundamentally flawed statement because let's use the 9v9 to 11v11. And the statement that, hey, I want the team to play 11 aside as a U12 so they're better prepared, quote unquote, for U13 11 aside soccer. And again, this is my opinion, so I'll preface it with that. But to me, that sort of statement implies that preparation for 11 aside soccer is predominantly done with respect to spacing and positioning and patterns of play that change when you add two more players per team. And the counter to that I would argue, is that if we're really preparing players to be successful at soccer, that's about them being better with the ball, better at their decision making and how to solve problems in 1v1s, 2v2s, 3v2s, because as most soccer educators would say, the game is a series of small-sided games, right? So the left back and left midfielder 2v1 against an opponent, right back. How do you solve that? It's a small-sided game within an 11 side. But when a statement is made that I am preparing players for 11 aside by putting them into 11 aside, I think what is not being said is that the opinion of preparing players does not involve getting them more touches, more decisions, and more actions in the game that the smaller sided format provides, which I would argue, and again, it's an opinion, I would argue I would take a player who is more technically competent, who is better in understanding how to solve small sided problems, and then be able to teach them how to play a position in an 11-a-side game later, because they will, just due to their individual ability and understanding, be in a better position to be successful from the beginning. Does that make sense?
Well, I think you can. Yeah, I mean, I think you can. We've talked about this. This has been a while since we talked about this. I mean, I think you could teach players how to do things that relate to positions. You
Yeah.
know,
I'm in an 11-a-side system
while
of play.
still, yeah, while still looking after their individual. Yeah, because I think we agree that at the end of the day, you and I and all coaches have coached enough games to understand that generally speaking, the team with the best players are the most successful teams. So how do you,
Regardless of how they play.
yeah, and you might be able to, paper over that at 13 or at 11 when these transitions happen because you have a little bit more understanding of the bigger
A little bit
numbers.
more collective organization.
Correct. But
So,
in the long
you said it
haul,
better, Doug, because you said the team with the best players generally wins. And so
right.
what I was trying to say is that if the team with the best players generally wins, then we should do the things that develop the best individual players, which, by my argument anyway, is keep them in smaller sided games with more opportunity for actions and decisions for as long as possible before we put them into the biggest game.
Yeah, no question. Right, because as you rightly noted at the beginning, not only is it about their repetition and their involvement in the game and the frequency of that, but it's also about their enjoyment. And you think about what kids at that age are doing; they're playing because they enjoy it, right? And so to come at them with some tactic or some idea about something big that involves them, one third the time they would be involved in a smaller number just makes sense. That is going to affect what you said, their experience.
Well, and let's also add the fact that the bigger the space that you play in, the more speed is impacted, right? Because faster players do better in bigger spaces. So, in ages where there is broader physical discrepancies between players because of puberty and the timing of that,
Yeah,
putting them in bigger spaces earlier is going to further disadvantage the slower or late developing kids, and it's
yeah,
going to further advantage the early developing kids. And again, there is not going to be a correlation between early or late development and who is the best long term generally. So we're doing things that take away touches, take away decisions, emphasize physical traits that are at their maximum sort of discrepancy from individual to individual. To me, there is really no reason to do this. It does beg the question why people want to do it, and I don't know if that is that is driven by confusion and development, whether that's driven by some argument that we have not articulated, whether it's driven by some economic thing, whether it's driven by infrastructure and saying, hey, it's just hard to find 9-a-side fields or 7-a-side fields or 5-a-side fields. So like, it's easier just to put them all on the same size field. Whatever the argument is, I just don't particularly like the other side of that argument. Um, but I'm gonna shed some light on this because I found a study here, and I don't normally like to be the guy who cites a bunch of studies, but
Come
this is
on,
from
you
the,
were a lawyer.
I
Be
know this.
honest.
This is the International Journal of Sports Science and Coaching from 2022. And the study was the influence of different game formats on technical actions and playing time parameters, a study with under 7 and under 9 soccer players. All right. And the beginning is anyone who's read academic studies will tell you the beginning is sort of a whole bunch of background. And again, as we've said earlier, the US does 9-a-side, 7-a-side, 5-a-side. Other countries, we can just use some examples and maybe unpack later. Most or much of Spain plays 7-a-side all the way until U13, where they play 11-a-side. Belgium a few years ago, I'm not sure what they're doing now, but Belgium a few years ago did basically 2v2
Yeah, they
for
started with
young
2v2.
ages.
Yeah,
Yeah, where
right.
you were
Right.
either a goalkeeper or a field player. And the reason they did that is because what do kids want to do when they're playing soccer? They want to have the ball. So you either get to shoot the ball or save the ball. It's like the most fun thing you can possibly do as a player. And then they built from 2v2 on. England is announcing and it has announced a change for next year that is delaying the start of 11-a-side soccer until under 14. So they're going even smaller. So it begs the question, if all these other countries are playing smaller, and U.S. is in that area. Why do coaches or why are there people who are pushing going to bigger sizes earlier? And I'm going to read this statement, some of the detail from this study. So the first part is like a review of what's been out there before. The vast majority of studies reveal an increase in the number of technical actions by a decrease of field dimensions and team sizes. So that's what we've said before, right?
Yeah.
You reduce the size of field and numbers and you get more. Here's a perfect example. This is from Spain in a study that they summarized before. The reduction of team, field, and goal sizes of the traditional Spanish competitive form 8v8 and the U12 age group in comparison to 5v5 showed a greater number and variability of technical tactical interactions in team play. Okay, that sounds good. So this study, what it did is that U7 and U9, they looked at two different types of games, the traditional form, as we've talked about, and then a smaller sided form. So I'll start at U9. So they compared 7v7, that's what we play at
Yep.
U9 currently, uh, with a 5v5 game. So they took groups of players and had them play 7v7 and 5v5, 40-minute games, all right, in this study. And they said, so what is the difference? All right. And there's a whole lot of statistics and, things like standard deviations and all that sort of stuff that I'm not an expert in. But I'm going to read some of the important things here. So when they looked at U9, here we go. The players executed, quote, significantly more actions in small-sided games, significantly more successful passes, dribbles, goal shots, and goals were performed in 5v5. So they say, again, the comparison there is 7v7 and 5v5. Now I'm going to give you some of the data that they just stated in that sentence. So they took something called technical actions per individual playing minute. All right, so these were 40-minute games in a 7v7 versus a 5v5. And at U9, total actions averaged 1.42 actions per minute per player in 7v7 and 2.1 actions per minute in 5v5.
A
So
lot more.
that's like a 30% increase in
Yeah.
involvement with the ball by going from 7v7 to 5v5. If you looked at things like successful passes, went from 0.23 to 0.33. That's another significant increase. Uh, you look at dribbles went from 0.17 to 0.24. And this is individual actions per minute. That's what the point.
Yeah.
So it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that it means here a dribble was per player once every 4 minutes, basically with a 0.24. Shots on goal went from 0.08 to 0.18. So all of these things and the same similar things were found in the U7 where they compared 7v7 to 3v3. Okay, so at U9 they compared 7v7 to 5v5, and at U7 they compared 7v7 to 3v3. And ultimately, the conclusion being that the kids are involved a lot more. They get a lot more touches on the ball. They get a lot more decisions and opportunities to make. And that also within that, it's in theory more enjoyable for the kids. Um, it's read some other statements here. In both age groups, significantly more technical actions were executed in the small-sided game. In both age groups, noticeable higher numbers of goal shots and goals were found in the small-sided games. Both successful and unsuccessful 1v1 situations were more frequently performed in 3v3 games than in game formats than in the 5v5 format. Or sorry, 7v7 format. And so ultimately the conclusion here is that scaling down the field and team sizes during competition leads to greater involvement of kids. And so when you say all that, and why do I look at the study there? And again, that's from the International Journal of Sports Science and Coaching from 2022. Is because we can always have opinions and say that sounds like it would happen, but this is actual data where people took the time to count it, film it, and say, well, how much more? And the answer is significantly more. And if we want to develop more players of a higher quality, we want them touching the ball more.
So let's talk about, let me ask you this, because you've functioned in youth clubs for whatever, 20 plus years. Tell me the hurdles to us doing this.
Well, you'll have an opinion on these answers too.
I will.
And so we can probably come up with a list because there is a lot.
Yeah.
Number one is as simple as it is, infrastructure. Having fields with different lines and different size goals is complicated. Now, should infrastructure and whether the line is painted or coned out or whether the goal is exactly the right size, should that drive this equation? I would think not.
Should
But
not.
infrastructure is a concern that you have to address. Probably more to the point is it's hard. You need somebody who I'll put it this way. It's easier to put one field of 7v7 out or 9v9 than it is to lay out four fields of 3v3 or 2v2 or whatever the equivalent would be. Because if you have one coach one coach per team, most people are going to be more comfortable saying, well, let's just put one game out there and let them all play. We kind of got all eyes on it rather than set out a bunch of fields where not everybody can be monitoring every field. There's a concern with operation in that perspective. Again,
And you hit on something that we could list next, which was, do you need more coaches?
Yep.
Because you have more teams, and that's hurdle.
Another one is parent or other perspective that this is not the quote real game, right?
Yeah.
Another is status quo. Well, this is just what we do. But I think
This is the way we've always done it.
the way we've always, yeah, that's the great answer, right? And everything. There's so many bad ideas started with this is the way we've always done it. I shouldn't say bad ideas started with, bad ideas continued with.
Yeah.
This is the way we've always done it.
I would say this. Tell me if you agree with this. The splitting of teams and how you assign players to teams and having bigger numbers allows you to keep more good players, air quotes, together, which makes
So
it
competitive
seem
factors.
more elite, if you will.
Yep. Yep.
And when you
Yep.
split them up, people are like, well, how do you just split them up? Right. There's that kind of perception, like who's the top team and who's the next team, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. A focus, I think, whether it's a short term or a long term focus. So are we really measuring our success by where these guys are in 6, 7,
I
8 years, or are we
well, we,
success of our scores today?
well, we talked about this, right? It's the reality of youth soccer is here is that your younger, more inexperienced coaches are coaching these younger teams.
Yep.
That is a fact. It's not necessarily doesn't happen everywhere, but that's a fact. And so, therefore, what were you like when you were a young coach trying to make your name? You, there's only one way to do it. It's not to say, hey, 8 years ago I started training Susie and or Johnny, and now they're a great player, and I'd like to think that I had a great part in their, initial acquisition of skill and understanding of the game. No, it's about wins and losses. Period.
Yeah, and we have to change that dynamic. And part of that goes back to what we've talked about before about the importance of making zone one coaching a really highly valued career and or a profession that people really respect the unique skill set that it takes. And listen, we're talking, and right now you and I are giving our opinion that these small-sided structures are really important. And to underline that we're not totally out on left field by saying we should be playing even smaller. What England, who's done a lot of research on this, is launching starting next year into the 2026-27 season.
By the way, when before you say this, I will say I just read something the other day that in the World Cup 2026, England will have the most valuable by dollar team in the world at the World Cup. So their player value, their transfer value,
Yeah, yeah.
is the most uh, expensive, if you will, the most valued uh, player squad of any country.
I mean, and that says a lot based on how dramatically different that was probably 15 years ago. I mean, the
Yes,
English academies have a better reputation for development now than they did 15, 20 years ago in general. That's a very broad
I think
statement, but
there's
the English
more. Yeah,
national team.
they're in I don't know. I mean, I think people would probably say they've always had really good players and they just have never kind of gotten it together. I mean, at a major tournament recently,
All right.
obviously they
Well,
played,
let's say this.
but I hear you. But
The FA 10, 15 years ago really put new emphasis on looking at youth
yes,
development and what was
yes, I think,
happening in the clubs in youth development.
yeah, that's fair. Totally.
So now, and they continue to do so. And so now their recommendations moving forward at U7, 3v3. At U8 and U9, 5v5. So that's two players less than we play at
Yeah.
U9. U10 and U11, 7v7. So U12 and U13, 9v9. And U14, the first time they play 11 aside. They're not alone in this. In Germany has a little bit more, ironically, the Germans seem to, at least the information we've found, indicate a little more flexibility here. But at U6 and U7, 2v2 or 3v3. U8 and U9, 3v3 or 5v5. U10 and U11, 5v5 or 7v7. U12, 9v9, and then the Germans going to U13 and 11 aside. As we said before, in Spain, generally 7v7 until U13. So you look at, and we don't need to get into an argument about whether Spain or Germany or England or anybody else is, the best at developing players. All three of them have many, many of the top 100 players in the world.
Yes.
All three of them have a long history of really high level pros. And
And
all three of them,
that plays into their ability to keep producing them. I mean, there's some cultural.
Oh, there's culture for sure.
Yeah,
But what I'm
yeah.
saying, and again, causation, correlation, they're different. But all three of them are playing game formats smaller than we are playing. And I would argue that again, and I think we've said this in the past, you know, every 9-year-old is not the same. There are probably 9-year-olds that are ready to play a bigger format game than others, right?
I don't
But
know what that means.
well,
What does
what
that
I'm
mean?
saying is that there are kids with more skill, more technical ability, more understanding that are both 9. There's two kids that can be very, very different. One may be ready to
Yeah,
do
okay.
different things than others. Okay. And you could make an argument that, hey, if this 9-year-old is exceptionally good with the ball and is very good in his understanding, maybe he's ready to go play 9v9 before this other 9-year-old. He's ready for a different challenge of size. But Doug, I think what
Yeah,
you're saying is if the argument of touches and decisions and whatever is the same, then he's still better off in a smaller sided format. You just got to, put him maybe against older players in a smaller sided format.
yeah.
But
Increase the resistance,
yeah,
not the
increase the
format.
resistance,
Yeah,
but keep the number of touches and decision making. So,
yeah.
I would make the argument that if we're looking at zone one and saying, what can we do in this country to improve zone one? What we should be saying is we should shrink the game format even more than it is today. And we certainly should be pushing back against this desire by some to play 11v11 at U12 because they got to prepare for U13, which is now creeping into this desire to play 9v9 at U10 because they got to prepare for
Yeah,
U11. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it's sort of it reduces itself down to absurdity at some point. If we just keep saying, well, just keep adding players to prepare for the next, as opposed to what is it that's going to help these individual players get better at these individual actions and these small numbered actions, which is really what the 11-a-side game comes down to.
So Christian Lavers is the czar,
No, 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 don't give me
the
that.
czar of soccer in this country. What should we be doing?
I kind of like what England's doing, to be honest. Or I could say maybe I can understand an argument to do 11-a-side at U13, maybe, especially
I
for,
think not. I think 14 is when we should start playing 11v11.
well, and that's what England's doing. So I kind of like
Yeah,
what they're doing. I mean, I've made this statement before, and again, I'm still in my early learning of being in zone one. That's another thing that's interesting, by the way, is that the most DOCs spend most of their time in the 11-a-side game with the older age groups.
that's right.
Right. And there is probably some sort of feedback loop that is missing from getting the opinion of people. And I'm not saying myself, I'm saying zone one directors, right? Guys who have spent their career in zone one or who are responsible for multiple age groups in zone one, having their opinion and voice heard in these discussions is really important because they're the ones there. And we talk a lot about the value of our organization and governance structure being that you have club directors who are making the decisions. Well, as we get down into younger age groups, it's not the club director, it's the zone one director, or it's the, academy director, or whatever you want to call them. That same logic applies that if we want to do good things in zone one, we should probably need to talk to people in zone one. Just like if we want to do good things in club soccer, you got to talk to people in club soccer. You agree with that?
Oh yeah. No, no doubt about it. I mean, that's that's essentially why the ECNL started, is because that wasn't really happening,
I mean,
right?
I'll give you
And
this.
we
What,
wanted
what?
to create an environment where it did happen, right?
Yeah.
Not only, you always say this, youth soccer should be governed by youth soccer experts. And those are the people that are doing it every day. So absolutely, like we should be talking to zone one directors. And the other thing is I would guess that zone one directors around this country at amateur youth clubs are few and far between. I bet there's not a lot of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. And listen, before somebody says, "Well, we're very European centric on this." I mean, if you go to South America or Brazil and you look, what is one of the biggest factors that people credit for development of South American or Brazilian players?
Street soccer.
Street soccer, which is small-sided, and then
Yes.
futsal.
Yeah.
And what is futsal? Futebol de salão, right? Football in the room. It's small-sided games.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so if you and I would challenge you on this as well, is if you go and find your son or daughter and just said, "Hey, let's go. I'm going to take you to play indoor soccer, right? 5v5." They love it. Why do they love it? They're always around the ball. The walls make it even more so that the game is fast and they're always around the ball because the ball doesn't go out of play. Right. That
Yeah.
was another thing they looked at, by the way, in this study is time out of play, which was an interesting side note that was reduced. It was actually, even though there was more out of play with some of the small-sided games by allowing dribble ins and kick ins, the actual lost time wasn't that different, which is interesting because a dribble in and kick in is a lot quicker and easier than a throw in. So,
Right.
again, something you don't think about until you actually get out there and do this stuff. So, I guess our argument on this is that if we want to improve, you asked one of your brain busters a few weeks ago, like, what do we need to do for a U.S. player to win the Ballon d'Or on the men's side?
Yeah.
And one of the things we talked about is improving what's happening in zone one. And I would make an argument that part of what we should be doing in zone one is reducing the number of players and the game format at least some of the time. So even if we don't want to be revolutionary here and say that we're going to make everything at U11 go from 9v9 to 7v7 and at U9 go from 7v7 to 5v5, even we don't want to make blanket statements because there's differences in, infrastructure and all the other variables we talked about at the beginning. I would argue we should find more opportunities for smaller sided competitions, whether that is tournaments, whether that is unique competition days within a league. Here's an idea. If you're doing U10 and it's a 7v7 league, why not have a 5v5 competition day? Why not have a 5v5 tournament as part of the league? Why? What does that hurt to do that? I've made the argument, what if you took a day and said, typically a 7v7 team has 11 players, maybe 12. So play 4v4 on each half of the field for 20 minutes and then play 7v7 for 40 minutes. Just change it up.
Here's a crazy question. We've seen this in American football. There's a lot of these 7v7 leagues out there now, right? Where they've reduced the number. It's a lot of receivers and quarterbacks throwing and catching, and a lot of these big time receiver receivers that are moving on to college level have come from these
Oh, really? I'm
seven to
not aware
seven
of
leagues.
this.
So yeah, it's wild. It's been huge, and I don't know enough about it to be completely intelligent, but I know it's out there. And then another thing we've seen in the summer, and we've just seen it out there, which I think it's going to grow, are the 7v7, like the TST
Yep.
in the summer. Do you think that will have legs at the youth level?
What specifically?
Playing a smaller number, like having
Yeah.
events that are not 11v11. I know, and I'm sure you probably experienced this where you always had these younger kids that did 3v3 and then they went down to Florida and
Yeah.
played in 3v3 nationals and all that kind of stuff. It was a huge thing where we're at. So I just wondered, do you ever think that might be something?
Yeah, and listen, I think the example, I remember that, the 3v3 down in Florida, national champions. And
Yeah.
listen, you don't have to go to that degree, right? You having a 3v3 tournament, in your neighborhood, in your city, in your state, whatever. Why is that so popular? It's not because you get to go to Florida. It's because what's happening in 3v3 is the kids are always involved with the ball.
Right.
And if they're always involved with the ball, they're going to get better with the ball. And when they're always involved with the ball, it's fun. You get to try things. You get to experiment. You get you make a mistake, you get a chance to go again. I mean, all the things that you would want the youth game to include are encapsulated in these things. So I think this is an area, as we're talking here, almost stream of consciousness, that we as a league can lean into in this space and create these types of opportunities and these types of formats in some way or another. Because it said you don't have to go from 0 to 100, or you don't have to go black or white. You can
Yeah.
mix and match these formats, and it seems pretty inarguable about the data in terms of the value. And now, somebody can make the statement that when you add numbers and you add more moving pieces, and there's perception issues and understanding issues there that are important too. I get that. Um, but I think it would be a mistake. To me, it's certainly a mistake to be pushing entire groups of leagues into 11 aside early and 9 aside early. To me, that somebody needs to ask why. And part of this, I think,
The answer can't be, well, we're getting ready
it
for
can't be we're getting ready.
the
It's got to be a
change to
better
the
answer than
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Because then what stops it? Oh, well, we'll do it a year early. Or we just want to be ready, you know? No, what you want is you want the players to continue to get better. And so putting them in the format that facilitates that is what you should do for as long as you can, right? So yeah.
It's just shocking to me what a hot button issue this is and is becoming. And it seems that these things go in waves, right? Where it starts one place and then it sort of rolls across the country, or it starts to pop up in other places. And I think this is one of those things where
I do want to bring up this reality too, just to talk about, because I don't know that anybody has the answer. I do think, again, there's some viability issues here at the club level. And those viability issues are when you make those transitions, do you have enough players to do it? You know what I'm saying? So like when you go from 9v9 to 11v11, what's your roster got to change from, probably what, 12 players to 15 or 16?
yeah,
And if you're in the
minimum.
ECNL and the RL, you have to
Yeah.
get two teams worth of players. So if you're at a small club and you just think about the viability of your teams and how just doing it early help facilitate making sure you have rosters that are, you know what I'm saying? I
Yep.
think there's some nuanced things to this that we all feel as club operators. Um, and that doesn't make it right, right? It doesn't mean that we shouldn't
Well,
be.
but let's talk about those things and see if we can find solutions for them. It's the same argument about a 77 field versus a 9v9 field in terms of size, right? Or goal size, right? Because
Right,
kids
right.
grow, and so a bigger goal is appropriate as you get into older ages. If there are challenges with infrastructure because of finances or ability to get the right size goal or the right lined field, what are ways to work around on that? At least sometimes, So, I could understand, for example, if we said, hey, most of the fields our U10s play on are 9v9 with 9 aside goals, so we want to put two more players on the field because it's too big.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what else could we do? Maybe we can't address the goal size, but
Just
we
bring
can
them up
address
to
the
the
field
18.
size, bring the
Yeah,
field shorter,
yeah,
right?
right.
And okay, what does that mean? There's more goals because the goalkeepers are small. Okay, that's not a bad thing. What do kids love to do?
Yeah, it's a bad thing if you're the goalkeeper.
Well,
But
that's true. But what every kid in the country right now when they score a goal does the Ronaldo Sue, right?
yeah,
Every
yeah.
kid, it's unbelievable. Um,
See that
but
bicycle kick he hit this weekend, by the way?
I did not.
Oh my God, look it up. Dude's 40 years old.
That's,
It's sick. It's sickening. And I also did watch Messi completely annihilate my hometown team this weekend too.
oh
So
yeah, well,
sorry, I digress.
You know what I
or no?
watched? I
It's
mean,
bad.
if we're going to diverge, I went to the college men's game. I went to USD, University of San Diego versus Grand Canyon in the round of 32 last night. And
Okay.
I would say the quality of the men's college game, at least at that level, was really good.
How many players on each roster were foreign?
I
Too
looked at
many.
I looked at them and I would say it was pretty close to the average of about 40 to 50%, maybe a little less than maybe 40, somewhere in that 35 to
I
40.
don't think that's not good for the American
No,
game.
no,
No,
and
sorry.
and by the way, there were the when I say the level was really good, it wasn't just foreign players. I mean, the level
Yeah.
was really good. I looked and there were a bunch of ECNL alums on the USD team who dominated and had some defensive challenges and got heartbreak at the end. But, just watching the game with my wife and kids, I was really impressed with the standard, the technical standard and the quality of the game. Which I say that because there's a lot of good things happening in this country. There's a lot of good
Yeah.
people doing good things.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, we come across people every day, and I think people are really trying to do what's in the best interest of the players by and large. They really are.
Yeah.
And
And sometimes I
there's
think you need to provide sort of the forum for these discussions because some of these, this push. So we go back to, yes, there's a lot of people doing a lot of good things. That doesn't mean we stop trying to do good things. It means we keep trying to do good things. So if we look and say, hey, maybe should there be more seven aside instead of nine aside, or five aside instead of seven aside? Let's talk about that and let's equip people to have this discussion. And we all can agree to, change our minds. And we all can understand that we all make mistakes and we don't pretend to have all the answers
or
here.
there are inherent challenges that we don't know about or
Correct.
we
But
haven't
let's talk about it.
felt. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if we are playing bigger than maybe utopia would say we should or would say is best, well, let's at least acknowledge that. It's the old, when people talk about unopposed training, there's not a problem with unopposed training as long as you acknowledge what you're taking away from the game, right? When you take away defenders and you take away the resistance of an opponent in time and space, well, okay, that takes away a lot of the game, but it doesn't mean that it's not important to do some repetition of things. It just means know
Sure.
what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah. No, totally.
And I think
Totally. Yeah.
that needs to be said in zone one. There's a lot we're going to talk about over the next months in zone one. We got a lot of really exciting things I think that we're going to announce here between now and February that are aimed at trying to do what we think will help continue to raise the standard and the level of the American player that's coming out of the ECNL and the ECNL Regional League through the preseason.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not going to be, we're most certainly a couple things to say, not going to be the people that just complain about things without trying to change it or improve it or make it better. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, I think the great thing about, you know, what we have with this league is just the connection between the clubs and the club leaders so that you have the capacity to go and do something because you're with them, right? And that's, I think, different than having somebody, from an ivory tower tell you what they think you should be doing, even though they don't experience your daily existence, right? So,
Yeah.
so I think those are good things. Um, so I'm excited about this. It's been like a little bit of a blessing in disguise. You got into zone one and now you're hyped about it, but I think it's a good thing for us because I think in some ways we at times have been backwards about where we start this. We've kind of started with a focus on the older kids, right? And maybe now we're coming with a little bit more focus to the younger kids. It probably should and could have been the other way around. But you know, we're getting there, so I think that's a good thing. Definitely go check out Ronaldo's bicycle kick.
I will do that. I will do that.
Because you were 40 not that long ago.
I mean,
I was
I
40, a
could not
little bit
even
longer.
fathom trying to do a bicycle kick at age 49. 40 is a long time ago. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't think I could have fathomed it at age 40 either, to be honest.
no, yeah. You're going to find out once you're over 50 and over, the idea of falling in any way, shape, or form is not appealing at
Yeah,
all.
I can
Yeah. So,
understand that.
all right. Well, this is a good talk. I think this is going to be something we're going to continue to talk about, and uh, and try to tackle as we move forward. Let's take a quick break, hear from our hear from our partners, or hear about our partners, and we'll come back for this week's Brain Buster. That sound good?
Sounds good to me.
All right, Mark Pro, did you know ECNL provides free recovery sessions? ECNL has partnered with Mark Pro, a staple for recovery and professional sports. Mark Pro is a unique, safe, portable e-stim device that feeds sore muscles and removes metabolic waste. Stop by the recovery zone during your next event. The ECNL is pleased to have Quick Goal as the official goal provider and partner for ECNL girls and ECNL boys, a partnership that supports the growth and development of this country's top players, clubs, and coaches. At all national events, including national playoffs and the national finals, the Quick Goal Coaches Corner provides hospitality and social space for ECNL girls, ECNL boys, and collegiate coaches. Quick Goal is also the presenting sponsor for the national championship winning ECNL girls and ECNL boys coaches of the year, as well as the ECNL girls and ECNL boys goals of the year. Quick Goal continues to help the ECNL elevate the standards of youth soccer and create more opportunities for players on and off the field. And finally, score big with Continental Tire. Prioritize your safety on the road with our thoroughly tested tires for top-notch traction, handling, and durability. Drive with confidence. Find your dealer at continentaltire.com. Continental Tire, the smart choice in tires. All right. Jacob is with us. It's just the three of us.
It is.
Just the three of us. It's cozy. Thanksgiving. We're recording this just before Thanksgiving. So pretty simple, open-ended. What are you thankful for? What are you thankful for? Jacob, you go first.
I am always thankful for having good health, for having family in my life. But really, I'm thankful for really this past year. It's been a lot of personal and professional growth that I'm really happy with. My wife and I, we bought a house. I've been working with the ECNL for just over a year now, and I've really enjoyed my time here. So really feels like life is going really good. And I'm just really happy and thankful for what I've been doing.
Love that. Great answer. Christian, what are you thankful for? I won't make you say me because that's I already know.
That's true. So present company aside, I would say that I think about this actually every day. I'm very, very blessed with family, with health, which as you get older becomes more and more of something that sticks in your head, especially as you see people around you that are not so blessed. But as Jacob said, we also have a fantastic organization to work with and to make change and something to believe in. And so, start with God, family, work. Life is good, my friend. Life is good.
Love that. I think we're all kind of be on the same vein. Obviously, very thankful for family and get to come down here and spend time with them, which is great. So always very thankful for them and all that they bring to it. Very thankful for my health, getting up there, a little more gray in the beard these days. And then very thankful. Christian, you and I talked about a lot. Who'd have thought 17, 18 years ago that we would be here? So thankful for all the people and the organizations, the clubs, the people that work for the ECNL that made it possible and make it make it what it is. It's makes it really enjoyable thing to do. And I would say the same thing about my club here in Cincinnati. I get to work with great people, and so yes, like you guys, very thankful for all that. So
Yeah,
um,
I'll add to that, Doug. If we speak specifically on the ECNL now, thankful for over the last 16, 17 years, the number of coaches and directors that we've been able to work with and build with, because this is always a with thing, and
yeah,
have the support of through ups and downs and through some choppy waters, but ultimately have people that, as we've said so many times, aligned on vision and aligned on values that that stay together with a commitment to try and make the sport better, which is kind of what we're talking about all today in Zone 1 on this one specific issue that some people may say is, golly, that's getting down in the weeds when you talk about the sport overall. But it's the ability to have these discussions, to identify solutions or potential solutions to problems, and then the ability for so many clubs to go out and try and attack them together. That was what was missing really prior to our organization. And
yeah,
I hope we can keep that esprit de corps, as they say, for a very long time.
yeah. I think we're. I think you would agree that you and I are better because we've been able to interact with all those people. So it's great. And last thing I'll say is also thankful for Dean and Reed,
Mhm.
obviously, and Jacob for making the podcast great. So that's all we got
Absolutely.
today. Everybody have a very, very happy Thanksgiving and enjoy the time with the families.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.